It's Alfred, Big Nasty Kunua. It's International Children's Book Day. It's Malvinas Day. It's Thai Heritage Conservation Day. It's Unity of People of Russia and Belarus Day. It's World Autism Awareness Day. And WrestleMania season is over. It's all over from San Jose, and by God, what a wonderful show. I was at WrestleMania Live, and let me just tell you, one of the two best WrestleManias ever. Best WrestleMania I've attended in person. Best WrestleMania I'll probably ever attend in person. And from start to finish, from a production standpoint, I say one of the best two ever because it doesn't have that one standout match that was, oh my God, so good that we'll be talking about it for decades in terms of match quality. But it had several high-quality matches in addition to top-notch production. Everything you could ever expect in a WrestleMania, from crowd participation to shocking moments, to surprises, to celebrity appearances that weaved into the storyline. Loved it. Loved it. And on today's Super Show, we'll break down WrestleMania. We'll break down the Raw after. My trip to San Jose, which wasn't much of a trip because I'm a California guy. As well as a few interviews with some of the WWE superstars I got to talk to at Access. Dolph Ziggler, who had some very interesting comments. Natalya, Ryback, Christian. We'll get into all of that. But let's start with the WrestleMania card itself. You'll have to excuse me because I'm already losing my voice from screaming all weekend at all of the shows that I went to. Namely the Hall of Fame when I screamed out, "When is this going to be over?" We'll get into that too. But like I said, top to bottom, WrestleMania, one of the two best shows I've ever seen in WWE. This is one classic wrestling match away from being by far and away the best WrestleMania ever. Maybe not by far and away, but with a lot of confidence I could have said best WrestleMania ever if it had that one standout classic match. And there were a lot of very good matches. Let's start with the Intercontinental Championship ladder match. You had Daniel Bryan go over Bad News Bear and R-Truth and Dean Ambrose and Luke Harper, Ziggler, Stardust. It's a good match. A lot of good spots, kept the crowd engaged. I think they went with the right choice with Daniel Bryan, who I do think was made to be an Intercontinental Champion. He's that underdog who could wrestle, who could really work, who's a little undersized, and who can carry the Intercontinental Championship if WWE intends on it being a fighting champion's title. A title that you have good matches for. Make it competitive. Daniel Bryan's that guy. And a lot of people, the talking point that everybody's using is, oh, it's restored prestige. Let's just wait and see what he does with it. Let's just wait and see the slew of opponents Daniel Bryan gets. Let's see what he does with it. Hopefully he will. Now that Seth Rollins is champion, Daniel Bryan's hopes of getting back to the top of the WWE were a little bit dashed. Now this isn't going to be seen as a world title because the world champion's already here and is going to be a world champion presumably until SummerSlam, if not longer. They've moved forward with Seth Rollins. So Daniel Bryan has to fortify the mid-card. And it was a good mid-card match. The thing about this ladder match was that some of the greatest ladder matches of all time happened at WrestleMania. Whether you talk about Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon or TLC 2, whether you talk about the TLC match at WrestleMania 2000, all those great Money in the Bank ladder matches, some of the greatest ladder matches of all time happen at WrestleMania, so I can't look at this match in comparison with those matches and say that it holds up. We'll forget about what happened in this match in a couple of years. The only thing memorable about it was Dean Ambrose's nasty bump that he took. That awful-looking bump that he took, which was just scary. I mean, it wasn't great. It wasn't a classic moment. I don't think it's something WWE should be playing in its archives for years to come. It was just a scary moment. But there wasn't anything too memorable about this match. So in terms of a ladder match at WrestleMania, too many classic ladder matches for this one to hold up. Good, not great match. Now, I'll tell you what was a great finish was Randy Orton over Seth Rollins. My goodness. When I saw that live, and I saw it with my own eyes live, I still thought it was a camera trick. I couldn't believe what I saw. I thought I had seen every RKO finish there is to see. Okay, the guy jumps out of the air and you catch him in RKO. I get it. Nope. They came up with another one. He jumped off of Randy's back and fell into the RKO in what was, I think, the greatest finish of all time. At least the greatest finish in the history of WrestleMania. How did they pull that off? Very fluid match. There was nothing wrong with it. It had the near falls. It had the high drama. I really liked the storyline going into in terms of the package. The video package going into that match was very well done. Well, they went from the face to the future. It was just a great, wonderfully told story that tricked you into thinking that this was a good build, which it wasn't. Which it absolutely wasn't. But a very good match indeed. Now, I don't like how WWE sets up Money in the Bank winners and champions to just continue to lose with the logic that, well, they've got Money in the Bank, they'll be fine. Well, they've got this title, they'll be fine. The only thing I do like about Seth Rollins losing this match is it gives him that slew of opponents who have a claim to the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Whether that be Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, and now Randy Orton, who did beat him at WrestleMania. I'll take it. What I'll also take is Triple H's entrance after he defeated Sting. Let's not get a little too nerdy about this. It was a good entrance. I loved it. Love the production value. Love Arnold Schwarzenegger. It felt big time, and that's all I want out of a WrestleMania entrance, even though most people are only paying $10. You still want $1 million entrance because it's WrestleMania, and that's what we got with Triple H. Maybe I'm a little biased because I grew up loving Terminator, but this was incredible. I mean, all these machines surrounding him, I thought it was incredible. Now let's get into this match. Because I'm hearing a lot of wrestling fans who tend to take themselves a little too seriously complaining about the logic of NWO versus DX. It was overbooked, yes, but I think it was overbooked in a good way. It hid the limitations that Sting has. And it also allowed for great surprise. I mean, the loudest pop I think arguably I heard of the night was when NWO and DX went face to face. It was a great moment. Suspend your disbelief a little bit. But for those of you who refuse to suspend your disbelief and are going to read into wrestling storylines like it's real, and you're going to bring up the fact that, yeah, at the Hall of Fame, the Clique was hanging out, but now they don't like each other. I've got an explanation for you. I've got it. I know why DX and the NWO squared off, even though Triple H's buddies were in the NWO. I've got it. I figured it out. And I'll explain it to you. Saturday night, the night before, was a Hall of Fame, WWE Hall of Fame. We saw Kevin Nash give a promo or a speech. We saw Triple H give a speech. We saw Shawn Michaels give a speech, a very good speech. At the end, we saw once again the Clique come out and do their thing, which, by the way, doesn't it seem like every Hall of Fame ends with the Clique on center stage? And when they finally induct Lou Thesz, are they going to bring out the Clique in center stage? Is this going to be a thing? Can we stop this from now on? But they did it, and they're all buddies. But here's what happened. They went out for some drinks afterward. You know, Kevin Nash was inducted, and a lot of stuff about WCW came up, how he changed the business by going down south. And they're having some beers, and they're ribbing each other. It started when Triple H congratulated Nash, said, "Hey, Big Kev, congratulations, man. Raise a toast. It's just too bad we put your guys' ass out of business." The Big Kev, after a couple of drinks, fired back, "Well, yeah, at least I was able to go down south and make all that money." A little more uncomfortable laughter. Then they had a couple more drinks. Triple H said, "Yeah, well, what kind of friend leaves his brothers and tries to put them out of business anyway?" More uncomfortable laughter. Then it turned into an argument between a bunch of alpha males who at this point were a little liquored up. And Nash and Hall said, "You know what? Hall and I are going to Hogan's Hotel. We're getting the band back together and we'll see you tomorrow." And that's what happened. Just a few guys who were friends who had an argument that was supposed to be playful go a little too far. and it degenerated into DX versus the NWO. There's your story. For those of you who think wrestling is real and can't suspend your disbelief, there's your kayfabe reason why we got DX versus NWO. Are you happy now? Good. Let's move on. A lot of people were upset that Sting lost at WrestleMania. For those of you, I'm seeing a lot of people play that whole Triple H is a politician card. You can no longer ever play that card after the jobs that Triple H has done at WrestleMania. He jerked the curtain last year and lost to Daniel Bryan. He spent 4 WrestleMania appearances in a row on his back from WrestleMania 20 to WrestleMania 24. You cannot say this guy will not do a job because that's all he's done for the most part at WrestleMania. Last 10 WrestleManias, 4-6. Losing record. Not afraid to do the job. But I have another theory as to why Sting lost surprisingly. Which, by the way, should we really be all that surprised? This entire build-up, Sting has owned Triple H. If Sting would have beaten him, then Triple H looks like a chump, and we probably don't get that segment with The Rock. And if we did, it would just be awkward with Triple H in there saying how much he owns everything. So, okay, if this is a sacrifice we had to get in order to get to that segment with Triple H and Ronda and The Rock and all that, so be it. I'll take it. It's just one loss. But back to my theory. Word on the street is that Vince McMahon and top WWE officials were not very happy following the WWE Hall of Fame ceremony. Not only was it too long, but it brought up, reportedly, a bunch of angry feelings that were rehashed from when WCW was trying to put WWE out of business. Vince wasn't very happy with Nash saying that he changed the business. This according to PW Insider. So I'm guessing that plans did call for Sting to beat Triple H. But after those speeches, Vince was a little angry. And he woke up from his 20-minute nap that he takes, which constitutes his sleep every day. Woke up in a cold sweat from a nightmare that he had just come from the WCW Hall of Fame the night before Starrcade 31. And from there, with those angry rehashed feelings, he said, well, goddamn, WCW can't win this war. Nobody wants Starrcade 31. Paul, you're going over. And that's how it happened. Surprised? Yes, I was surprised that Triple H won. I was sitting in the press box, and everybody was dead silent when Triple H won out of shock. But am I going to microanalyze this? No. And when I do a little analysis, now in hindsight, when I see the fact that they brought Triple H and Stephanie out later on that night to set up an angle with The Rock and Ronda Rousey, I get it. I don't have a problem with Triple H winning from that standpoint. I get it. Not going to lose any sleep on it. All right, fine. So Triple H won. Icon versus icon. They shake hands. Maybe Sting goes away for a year. Maybe he goes away for the rest of his career. But he did get to compete in arguably the greatest WrestleMania of all time. Now let's get into that Rock and Ronda segment because I thought it was brilliant. Mainstream coverage. Wrestling's best foot forward. Wonderful. Usually when non-wrestling segments run a little long, when non-wrestling segments are this long, almost guaranteed people will become restless. And it becomes a criticism that, well, they had too much filler. And make no mistake about it, this went long, I think, so that WWE could let it get as dark as possible for Undertaker's entrance. But it was brilliant, and it didn't seem like a drag. It was a non-wrestling segment at WrestleMania that did not drag. You know how good a segment has to be for that to be true? And you know how good Stephanie McMahon was. I mean, lost in all this hysteria of Ronda Rousey making an appearance in a WWE ring is how good Stephanie was. There were points during that segment when I forgot Triple H was even in the ring. Stephanie is just so good at drawing heat. And I think she's a big reason why people were so into Ronda Rousey when she got in the ring and finally went toe-to-toe with Steph. Because Stephanie was doing such a good job being condescending and arrogant and mean. She's one of the best in the business when it comes to a talking heel. Right up there with Paul Heyman. Wonderful segment. And from the queen of WWE to the divas, let me tell you something right now. I went to the NXT show on Friday night, saw the women's match between Charlotte and Sasha Banks, and it was probably the best match I saw all weekend. And when I watched AJ Lee team up with Paige to take on the Bellas and this kind of half-assed storyline that didn't really have a long-term build-up, when I watched this match, I just kind of thought to myself, this is the last year we're probably going to see a Divas match and a Divas storyline this lackluster for a long time. I'm telling you, starting WrestleMania 32, there will probably be a singles Divas match for the Divas Championship with a great build. Because the groundswell of talent in NXT, when they start to get called up, it's going to change the perception of Divas wrestling. It was an okay match, tag team match, but nobody was really emotionally involved. If this is Charlotte versus Bayley next year, if this is Paige versus Bayley, if this is Sasha Banks versus Charlotte, if this is any combination of the Divas roster in NXT and some of the Divas in WWE, we're going to get a long-term build for a meaningful title in one of the best matches on the card. I just looked at this tag team match like over the past 3 years, it's been progress. You know, we get the group match, then we get a little bit of invitational battle royal, which is Now we get this tag team match, so it's less Divas. I think next year we're going to get the singles match, and we're going to go back to the days of Trish Stratus versus Mickie James stealing the show at WrestleMania 22. WrestleMania 32, 10 years later, sign me up, the Divas do it again. Now, Lana's a diva as well, probably won't be in one of those standout matches that I'm expecting next year between the Divas. But oh my God, how great was the entrance from Rusev? Was that not the greatest thing you've ever seen? And I usually don't use superlatives like this all that much, but the guy came out on a freaking tank. If you're a casual fan watching, you know, the fans that matter, and you see this guy come out in a tank, you are immediately sold. This dude is a big deal. I might not know who he is, but I know he's fighting John Cena, and I know he came out on a freaking tank. A tank! Incredible spectacle, incredible visual, but the guy didn't win. And I said going into this, I didn't want a show where both The Undertaker and John Cena won their matches. I would have been cool with either or losing their match because they're going against guys who are so close to being solidified as main eventers, and by God, they held on. I mean, I get Cena winning. Rusev has been protected. He's been undefeated. It was building up for him to lose on this stage, so okay. It was a very good match. The two seem to have very good chemistry, John Cena and Rusev. I enjoyed it. I loved the springboard stunner. Didn't like the fact that Rusev, this monster, only had to take one of John Cena's finishers in terms of the AA before he lost on a pay-per-view where everybody seems to kick out of multiple finishers. But it is what it is. I hope Rusev is okay after this. Again, can't make any promises. Every young guy in this era is one big loss away from being another guy. Let's just hope it doesn't happen with Rusev. It's too early for the breakup. I'm telling you, it's too early for a breakup storyline with Lana. The two complemented each other. What's Lana going to do without Rusev? I mean, I haven't seen her wrestle consistently. Maybe she's just a standout worker. We just don't know. It's like a hidden talent. But I've never seen her in the ring. And she's so good at that character that with Rusev it works. Rusev by himself is going to get We Want Lana chance. It's getting to that point where he's going to be defined by his relationship with Lana. And if they don't do a clean break and they break while they're hot right now, the fans are going to clamor for Lana every time he's around, and it's going to be a distraction. I think it's way too early for a split between them. But just like Rusev had a chance to really solidify himself as a main eventer, Bray Wyatt had that exact same chance, and he too came up short against The Undertaker. Now, I've been very vocal about the fact that not only did I think Bray Wyatt should have beaten The Undertaker, he should have beaten The Undertaker quickly. And like I said, everybody plays this game where they act like they want to see The Undertaker in there with a 15-minute match against Bray Wyatt. When I said Bray Wyatt should have won in 15 seconds, facetiously, but what I really meant, Bray Wyatt should have won quickly. When I said that, people lost their minds. On Bleacher Report on the Team Stream Now channel, lost their minds. But did you see The Undertaker in there for 15 minutes? Did you want 15 minutes of that? I mean, The Undertaker was blown up after 5 minutes. And it wasn't typically a bad match. He did look good physically. He looked younger. Liked the hair growing out. But man, is it about that time for The Undertaker. The only value he has, the only thing left he has to give to the WWE is to lay on his back at WrestleMania. It's the most elusive victory in sports entertainment. And if you look at this feud with Bray Wyatt compared to the feud with Brock Lesnar, this is where you would think The Undertaker would be more apt to lose. This is a match that Undertaker is more likely to lose because he's a guy who's old school. He's about going out on your back, but he's also about putting over the next generation. Not only is Bray Wyatt part of the next generation, he's the next generation of Undertaker. He's a similar character to The Undertaker. So a loss to him would have done more to the Bray Wyatt character because now he really is a new face of fear instead of now just being a fraud. Yeah, sure, Brock Lesnar's career was rejuvenated with the win over Undertaker. And he's doing some of the best work of his career. But if WWE would have shown a commitment to Brock Lesnar, even including a loss to The Undertaker, he'd have been fine. If he loses to The Undertaker and then destroys John Cena, maybe he's not over to the level he is now, he'd have been fine. Everybody knows to take Brock Lesnar seriously. But Bray Wyatt, believe me when I say, he might be in danger of being in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal next year. How many guys have we seen get so close to the top, lose that big match, and tumble on down the card? Damien Mizdow was Money in the Bank champion. He lost to Cena. There he goes. He gone. We've seen Sheamus capture the WWE Championship early in his career. Lost some big matches. He gone. And now he's trying to fight his way back up the card. Same thing with Wade Barrett. Same thing with Dolph Ziggler. Same thing with Daniel Bryan. We've seen too many examples of guys who are near the top of the card, tumbled on down a little bit, and ended up in mid-card purgatory. Bray Wyatt is no exception. Don't tell me he is. As for the WrestleMania main event, exceptional. Unbelievable. Listen, like I said, I was in the press box with all the nerds, and it was a great press box, and you could see the entire building, you know. And again, a lot of people who appreciated my work, a lot of people there who I liked their work, a lot of people I respected, and Dave Meltzer were there. and it was fun being in the press box, but I had to feel the crowd, so I snuck down to the courtyard, this kind of fan cave area they have at the beautiful Levi's Stadium, and I watched the main event from that balcony, and it was incredible. So loud. And I've watched it back on the WWE Network, and it was still loud, but oh my gosh, was it loud being there live. Brock Lesnar received one of the biggest pops of the night. Roman Reigns looked so big time, coming down through the crowd who were mobbing him. It was a big venue. It reminded me of Rocky coming to fight Ivan Drago in Russia. It was great. And WWE's booking of this match from start to finish, every aspect of it was brilliant. People hated Roman Reigns, but they were booking him as this guy who could just take a beating. The Simone badass Paul Heyman was talking about. Just getting his ass kicked and smiling. It was brilliant how they had him smile and say, come on, keep going. Slowly but surely, people around the arena, as pro-Brock as they were, they started getting behind Roman Reigns when he was smiling, when he was taking a beating. They respected him for that, especially when he came back and gave it to Brock Lesnar. And to have Seth Rollins come in and cash in the way he did sent people home happy because it's a very meta crowd. So they like the ROH alum cashing in Money in the Bank and going over in the main event of WrestleMania. You protect Brock Lesnar because he wasn't pinned. You protect Roman Reigns because he was on his way to beating the one and was cut short by the slimy heel. Everybody played their parts. Brilliant. Brilliant card, brilliant finish, great main event. It's all you got to ask for WrestleMania pay-per-view. So again, moving forward, Seth Rollins has a slew of opponents. And this is a great thing that WWE has done with Seth Rollins, is that he continues to get himself in all these sticky situations. He makes a lot of enemies, but at the end of the day, he's very evasive. I mean, very good at running away. Very good at slipping out of moves and running off. Very quick. And he's always going to go back into the waiting arms of the Authority. That's a great heel character. He lost to Randy Orton, so Randy Orton's got a claim to a match against Seth Rollins. Brock Lesnar wanted to kill Seth Rollins. I'm sure Roman Reigns wants to kill Seth Rollins, even though on Raw they didn't do a good job of conveying that. So Seth Rollins has a fresh batch of enemies. And back to Roman Reigns, could WWE have done anything less with him on the night after Raw, coming off all that momentum? As good as they made him look in that WrestleMania main event in the biggest moment of his career, they didn't follow up at all. He couldn't cut a promo talking about how angry he was with what happened. Not necessarily whining, but saying how he's going to seek vengeance. He couldn't at least seem angrier with Seth Rollins. Maybe he could have been somebody chasing him around. I mean, Roman Reigns was not seen until the end of the show. By then, everybody was drunk and ready to boo him. Everybody was hammered by the time he came out. They gave him an applause, a polite applause at the beginning of the show, which was induced by Paul Heyman. At that point, they couldn't have had him come out and maybe shake hands with Brock Lesnar and leave. They waited until the end of the show where all these drunk men were at their drunkest points, fresh off of misogynistic chants, and you bring out this guy who had been in battle leading up to WrestleMania? Come on. Especially by putting him in this boring six-man tag match. Now, the match itself is okay, but this concept of, we'll get three of these guys, and nothing's at stake. You put that match on last with Roman Reigns in it, and you expect him to get cheered? The key to getting Roman Reigns over as a babyface, especially in this era, is manipulation. You've got to manipulate the fans into cheering for him. So just like Seth Rollins brought back the Authority, Brock Lesnar, who is the hottest babyface in WWE right now, when it comes time for him to be reinstated, have Roman Reigns play a hand in it. Let Roman Reigns say, hey, I want my shot against Seth Rollins, but I want Brock Lesnar to have his shot too. I mean, he'll look brave. He'll bring back a beloved babyface. That's the type of brownie points Roman Reigns needs to get over with these fans. WWE needs to be actively trying to manipulate people into cheering Roman Reigns because he is that guy. Make no mistake about it. WWE is not going in another direction. Seth Rollins, as good as he is there to heel out as champion so that Roman Reigns can extend his chase so that by the time he wins that title, he's over. That's part of the manipulation that I'm talking about. But they need to continue on. They need to continue to try to make him likable without seeming like they're trying to make him likable. We don't need any of these promos from Roman Reigns. We need him to be a badass. Speak softly, carry a big stick, don't care if I get booed, vigilante, badass. That's what they need, and I think it's going to work. I mean, Roman Reigns did everything you could ever ask him to do. And I had a poll on Bleacher Report. Did Roman Reigns prove he was ready for a main event? All these people who are playing the role of wrestling scout. Well, he's not ready yet. What do you, Bill DeMott? I hope not. Well, he's not ready yet. I put a poll up on Bleacher Report. Did Roman Reigns prove he was ready for WrestleMania main event? 80% yes. Game over. What do you know? The fan was wrong. Leave it to the professionals, please. I beg you. Now, Brock Lesnar seems to be a professional everything, from wrestler to MMA fighter to dramatic actor. Does anybody, I cannot remember anybody who, when they went insane, maybe Pillman, when they went nuts, it never looks more real than when Brock Lesnar goes nuts. I mean, the way he just destroyed that table and destroyed Michael Cole and the announce team, sent that place into a frenzy. I felt like I was in the middle of a riot. It was incredible. Brock Lesnar going ham is better than any WWE superstar going ham of all time. I mean, he is the most ham superstar of all time. It was just, I just want, WWE Network has rolled out a bunch of new programming. They're going to have Jerry Springer have his own controversial moments show. They're going to have Seth Green produce a cartoon show. They need to have a 30-minute show, Brock Lesnar going ham. And it's just Brock Lesnar, a video camera, you put him out in public, Put him in ongoing traffic or something like that so he could just go nuts. Toss a Subaru onto a GMC Jimmy? How amazing would that be? By the way, Kalisto, oh my God. How over was that? And that wasn't the first time I've seen that, by the way. And this is the thing, this is where I think the disconnect is with NXT and WWE. The more I think about it, the more I think maybe NXT should just be an alternative brand. Maybe they should just have NXT for the hipsters, which is a crop of talent who will never get called up to WWE, save for the obligatory takeover storyline that's going to happen. Because Kalisto in NXT, people have gotten tired of his act. He was not over to the degree he was debuting on Raw. In fact, toward the end of his run in NXT, the Lucha Dragons, the NXT crowd was chanting Geico Lizards. I mean, they're a very kid-friendly act, very mainstream act, and something that I've thought for a while now should be on the WWE main roster, and boy, they did not disappoint. Same thing with Neville, who debuted. Wasn't the most over guy on NXT. Even though they put the belt on him, there was only so much independent wrestler love that could go around. That man crush could only be spread so thin. And Neville wasn't even close to being one of the most over guys in that company. Okay, he had a sick finisher, and he was very good in the ring. But when he was in the ring with Balor, they were chanting for Finn. When he was in the ring with Sami Zayn, they were chanting for Sami Zayn. He was hardly the most over guy there. They got a little stale and tired of him, and he was actually playing a heel in a lot of his matches. But in WWE, a whole nother story. And we've seen the other side of that coin. Adam Rose was over like God off of one entrance in NXT, and he gets to WWE, nothing. Emma was one of the top two divas in NXT. She gets to WWE, does that cutesy little dance, nothing. So maybe it is just two different audiences, and the really, really hardcore fans like NXT, and they like NXT because it's different. But the WWE more mainstream fans, even those who are there who are hardcore, the fans who watch WWE are going to like things that maybe the NXT fans don't appreciate. Like Kalisto. And the NXT fans are going to like these little niche Rocky Horror Picture things that WWE fans aren't going to appreciate, like Adam Rose. Maybe there is a divide and a disconnect. Maybe NXT should be a separate touring brand that WWE keeps strong and very rarely calls people up. Because I'm not 100% convinced that this is always going to translate. It just seems like whatever doesn't get over that much in NXT, it doesn't get over because it's more family friendly. It's more mainstream. Bull Dempsey, I think, is going to be a top heel in WWE. Mojo Rawley could get over with the children. The neon colors, I don't get hype, I stay hype. That could work in WWE. Doesn't work in NXT. Baron Corbin could be another Roman Reigns. NXT hates him. It's like anything that reminds them of WWE, they eviscerate. So maybe it's better off in WWE. Now, the night after Raw, the biggest stars in the show are the fans. That's the big draw. That's one of the big reasons to watch that show. It's what's so exciting about it. That's why I was so excited to go to the night after Raw, because the fan experience is phenomenal. The chants and how into everything that they get and how loud they are. And it's kind of a crowd that you gotta take with a grain of salt. They're an outlier. Things that are super over the night after Raw tend to fizzle out. You don't want to take too many of the chants and stuff like that seriously because they're all just having a good time. It's an international crowd. It's not indicative of the rest of the 51 weeks of the year. So you just kind of want to have fun with it and then be done with it and move on. But there's always one chant. There's always one thing that gets super over that piques the interest of WWE officials and maybe blossoms into something. In 2012, after WrestleMania 28, it was a yes chant. That blossomed. Still a success today. In fact, they won't leave. They still refuse to leave. 2013, the following year, there was a Fandango chant. They were humming his theme. WWE tried to make that a viral phenomenon. Not as successful. Fandango has since changed his theme music. In this past year, it wasn't necessarily something that got super over, but it definitely was the most eye-catching chant of the night. And that's new. Day sucks. New. Day sucks. That New Day sucks chant took on a life of its own. We were doing it in the parking lot. I was honking at beep, 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 beep. I mean, that chant pretty much killed the New Day as baby faces. And I emphasize the term as baby faces. And it shouldn't surprise a soul that it didn't get over as baby faces. I mean, seriously, how do you have the Bo Dallas gimmick, which is WWE being self-aware of the fact that the happy-go-lucky babyface is a thing of the past? They book a happy-go-lucky, cheery, fist-pumping, white meat babyface in Bo Dallas, but they make him a heel. It's like they're satire on the 80s babyface. So this is WWE and Bo Dallas saying, okay, we get it. These types of characters aren't popular anymore as babyfaces, so we'll just make Bo Dallas heel from the gate. How can you have a character like that as heel that shows you're self-aware of how poorly white meat babyfaces are treated by today's crowd, and then turn around and book the New Day, which is the exact same gimmick, but they're supposed to be cheered? But you expect people to cheer for this clap, 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 happy-go-lucky act? There's no backstory. They're not telling you why they're clapping, and there's nothing more frustrating than somebody who's always happy, and they never explain why. You don't know why they're happy. They're just smiling all over the place. So you think there might be something wrong with it? Maybe they're a little crazy. There's nothing that connects with fans with that gimmick. That's why they're chanting New Day sucks. There's no pathos. They're not explaining why they're here, what they're doing. They debuted on SmackDown against Curtis Axel and Heath Slater. There was no fanfare. They're not a real stable. They're a tag team. They're interchangeable. There's nothing to that group, so people can't stand when they come out and pander for cheers. You look at the group. You look at Xavier Woods. Look at Kofi Kingston. Look at Big E. Big E, his strength, unmatched. Kofi Kingston, his athleticism, unmatched. Does things that you've never seen before. Big E, 2 Florida State records. Xavier Woods, literally the most educated man in the history of WWE. They're superheroes. They're superheroes. They're not everymen. Every good guy has an everyman underdog quality to him. They're not underdogs. They're the closest thing WWE has to superhero. Super athleticism, super strength, super smarts. They're one Human Torch away from being the Fantastic Four. They're superheroes. And this is a generation in the reality era that boos the superhero. If Superman showed up on Raw next week, he would be a heel. Who do you think they're cheering for in a match between Superman and Daniel Bryan? The guy who can fly and shoot lasers out of his eyes and has everything? Or Daniel Bryan, the underdog, bearded goat? They've got to capitalize on the fact that the New Day is better than you and use that to their advantage. I mean, I couldn't for the life of me. When I saw these vignettes, I thought to myself, this is so cheesy. This is so campy. There's got to be something else. They're just setting us up. So when they show up, they're going to be heels, or there's going to be something about them that's crooked. Nope. They just went straight up. They just moved forward with this campy gimmick thinking it was going to work, and it got eviscerated. So again, every year, you got to throw out the crowd reactions. You got to treat them as an outlier, but there's always one thing that kind of sways WWE's reaction. Like, okay, this guy, we're on to something with this guy. I think this New Day sucks thing is a blessing in disguise because it'll end up turning them heel. Big E has already sent out a slew of heel tweets. Hopefully they go heel and they're revamped and they explain to WWE why they're bad guys and they're able to create a connection with the fans as bad guys. That's what needs to happen. This was never going to get over. I don't know who thought that these 3 guys just clapping and smiling and being happy was going to get over. Because we were first teased with the militant black stable, which I like the idea of, and I know a lot of people who love the Attitude Era love the idea of a new version of the Nation of Domination. And as offensive as a black militant stable could be, it's just as offensive to put 3 African Americans or black Americans together just because. I mean, there's no explanation. You don't know why they're friends. You don't know if they have anything in common. They're putting them together because. I mean, that is just as bothersome. So hopefully the New Day grows. Hopefully they slowly but surely develop into heels. And this is their chance to really make something out of this stable. They really have a chance to salvage this terrible idea of 3 happy-go-lucky baby faces in the reality era. I was certainly happy-go-lucky to go to the WWE Hall of Fame for my first time. It was supposed to be a 3-hour show. It was eventually a 4.5-hour show. And let me tell you, longest 12.5 hours of my life. Jesus. I just got back from the Hall of Fame to shoot this podcast. It's Thursday. It went so long, I attended with one of the Bleacher Report producers, Matt Garrett, and 2 speakers in. He turns to me and he goes, dude, an hour has gone by. We're only on speaker number 2. We've got 7 more to go. And I said, no, bro. Each of these guys is getting inducted. We got about 14 left. And it felt every bit of that 14 speakers. And one of the brightest spots of the show was the induction of Connor McCallick, which is a great story. Wonderful story. But they had 3 people induct him. This very sad story. They brought Dana Warrior up there to talk about how her husband passed on, and then about how Connor passed on. Then they brought Daniel Bryan, who did a great job, but he talked about how Connor passed on, making people sad again. Then they brought his dad on, and he talked about how Connor passed away. And it was just, I think it just brought everybody down. It was just so sad. And they had to continue the show from then on. And everybody went long. WWE needs to do something about this Hall of Fame to A, cut the speeches shorter, be more vigilant about people being up there and speaking, perhaps play some people off, I'm sorry. And they also need to cut the classes short. Put 5 people in, maybe even 4. A lot of the members of the Hall of Fame, if you look up and down the Hall of Fame, a lot of the wrestlers, not all of them deserve to be in the Hall. It's an entertainment Hall of Fame. So it's not like there's an overflow of people who need to be in there. Cut the classes shorter. 5 inductees. That's okay. It's perfect. Because WWE superstars and wrestlers alike, they're addicted to the spotlight. Make no mistake. The only reason you would put your body through what they put their body through, year in and year out, and I saw a lot of old wrestlers at the WWE Hall of Fame Weekly and had access, and they had a very hard time getting around. The only reason you would beat up your body in this insane profession, which is the toughest profession in all of entertainment, the only reason you pursue this to the degree where you become a Hall of Famer is because you're addicted. It's because you are addicted to the roar of the crowd. That's what keeps them going. That's what keeps them from retiring. That's what takes them out of retirement, is they are addicted to the roar of the crowd. And they are addicted to that spotlight. And when they get up there and they start speaking and they hear people laughing at their jokes and they hear people getting riled up, it reminds them of their glory days, and they keep going and they keep going and they don't stop. And they don't get off the stage. They're addicted. So of course the show's going to run over 12 hours, which really it was about 4.5 hours, but it felt like 12 hours. There were some good speeches. Love Triple H's speech. Love Arnold Schwarzenegger's speech. Shawn Michaels, the Bushwhackers, stole the show. But I don't need to be out there for 4.5 hours. It just feels like you're I watched the Hall of Fame last year on the WWE Network. I'm sure that show ran long too, but I could get up. I could go to the bathroom. I could be on my laptop. I could do all kinds of different things. There, we're sitting there at the SAP Center. We're stuck. You can take a bathroom break. You got to go back over there, sit down and listen. And it just needs to be something done about the length. Great show. Great speeches. They mean very well, but they need to do something about that length. Honestly. Before I get out of here, I'd like to remind you, check me out on Stitcher, where I've joined the Stitcher family, as well as iTunes and SoundCloud. As I mentioned at the top of the show, I had the pleasure and honor of interviewing several WWE superstars and divas. Start with Dolph Ziggler, who at this point just doesn't seem like he cares about being politically correct, and that's great. Always makes the best quote. I asked him about once again competing in a group match at WrestleMania and if there's any added pressure to steal the show. Listen.
I feel there's added pressure every day to prove myself to my peers and for my fans and everyone who stood behind me through thousands of losses, crap being dumped on me twice, and every possible minute something being this close to something and then having it taken away. So yeah, of course I feel added pressure, but I feel like that's my whole deal. My entire career is the pressure's there. I step up, deliver, and hope somehow it's in the cards for me to continue on.
And those are the wise words of Dolph Ziggler. Great quote. I mean, you can tell he's at this point in his career now where he's kind of in the middle. He's not going to go too much higher because there are NXT guys there now. There are guys who are going to the new generation. He's not going to drop too much lower because he's too talented and he has his fan base. So he's just there. And he probably knows it. So he can be a little apathetic with his answers. He can be a little irreverent. He can say whatever's on his mind, not really toe the company line that some people were. And I love it. Gets a great quote. I mean, talks about having crap dumped on him twice. I mean, this is a guy who still does work his ass off, despite the fact that he's pretty much solidified his spot. But he works every day like he's part of that NXT generation that's looking to rise to the top. And you got to respect the guy for it. And he worked very hard in the ladder match. Had a great match with Daniel Bryan on Raw the night after. I think people were a little too generous to it because of who was involved. But it was a good match nonetheless. Somebody else who's capable of having good matches is Natalya. I caught up with her. Talk about the Give Divas a Chance movement, and here's what she had to say.
I think it's great, and I think it's not just about giving divas a chance, but giving everybody a chance. And, you know, that this WrestleMania is huge because not only are the divas getting a chance to shine, but you're also seeing the tag teams shining. You're seeing, you know, you're seeing people other than just the main event shining, and the divas, you know, their voices are being heard, and it's so cool to see Total Divas taking over. You see so many more people wanting to watch WWE because they watch Total Divas. And so for us as a Divas division to kind of make our, you know, stories more well known, it's a huge accomplishment and breakthrough for us.
Great answer, kind of on the political side. Give everybody a chance. I like that. She should run on that campaign. Here's the juxtaposition is that maybe you'll hear this in a future podcast as we get closer to Mayweather versus Pacquiao, but I did ask all the WWE superstars I talked to who they had in that fight. And obviously Floyd Mayweather is a friend of WWE, so all the politically savvy WWE superstars and divas said, oh, I've got Mayweather 100%. He's a friend of the company. But guys like Dolph Ziggler, how I said, you know, he's kind of in that irreverent stage. He flat out said, you know, I probably got Manny to knock him out. He said that, you know, it could go the distance with Mayweather, but he could see Manny knock him out. I respect that, and I respect her pick as well. Great comments from Natalya, great insight. It is about giving everybody a chance because you do see an influx of talent in the tag team division with Kalisto, hopefully a New Day stable that's heel, but Tyson Kidd and Cesaro are doing a great job, and the Usos, when they're healthy, are always good. And then you see the Divas movement. I'm telling you, by WrestleMania 32, one of the best matches on the show will be a Divas match. So we are in the point in WWE where it's all about the movements. It's all about the grassroots campaigns to get your favorite superstars, divas, tag teams, or other underserved talents at or near the top of the card, or at least in the conversation. Now, I talked to Christian, who made his hay in the tag team division. Had the honor of speaking with him. Very nice guy. And I asked him about how the WWE has evolved since he's been there. Listen.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's just the way the guys are coming in, you know, through the NXT system and the Performance Center down in Orlando. You know, it's kind of grooming guys to, you know, back in the day, you know, it was kind of when you got here and you finally made it on the Raw, it's kind of like just thrown out there and not really knowing what to expect. With NXT, it's kind of like a smaller version of what we do on Raw and SmackDown. So it's easier for the performers to get acclimated, and then when they step out of that Raw or SmackDown, that's for the first time. It's not as much of a shock. They've already kind of been groomed for it. So I think that's kind of the biggest difference at this point.
Finally, I also talked to Ryback, who is taking leaps and bounds in building his character and really humanizing himself from being this big monster who people assume is this muscle-bound Vince McMahon pet project to really being somebody who's identified himself as a wrestling fan and someone who wants to work as hard as he can to get back to the top. And I talked to Ryback about humanizing himself as a character and what this business means to him and how he intends on getting back to the top. Listen.
You know, we we've done a great job of humanizing me because I am a human. I am the big guy, and I wanted people to know my story and to know everything I went through. I wasn't a guy that just showed up on TV and had a rocket put on him. That was never the case. I've been through a lot here in the WWE since I was 22 years old, and I've worked very hard to get to where I am. I took many steps forward and then got thrown back, got thrown down a whole set of stairs and landed on my head and was stripped away of everything. But I rebuilt myself, and I am now on the rise once again. I think it's just going to be a time thing with people going out there and seeing my efforts night in and night out. I work 5 days a week, 300 nights a year for the WWE, and at the end of the day, I've always said this: nobody will outwork the big guy.
Gotta love that passion. Gotta love that determination. And I feel like Ryback is in the same position as a Dolph Ziggler. They're roughly from the same era where if they're not top stars right now, it's probably not going to happen. But I think Ryback has a little more potential than Dolph to get back there because of just how determined he seems, because of that chip that seems to be on his shoulder, where he's in this reality era and he will not let them get the best of him. And he's going to prove that he loves wrestling and that he needs to get back to the top. And of course, he's got that physique, that main event physique, that if he just improves in the ring and connects a little more with the fans, which he's done a good job of, who knows? He could have a late peak in his career. It could happen. Listen, people were chanting "Feed Me More" the night after WrestleMania. Smarkiest crowd of the year, Ryback on the babyface side. People were chanting "Feed Me More." They might have been trolling Roman Reigns, but they were chanting for him. And I think he might have a little bit of a window, a sliver left open. Feed him the big show, and who knows? Maybe they have a match for the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal trophy, and he carries it around. The guy's got a chance. I might be crazy, but I'm telling you, the big guy's got a chance. But that'll do it for the WrestleMania Supershow Spectacular on PodNasty. Gave you guys close to an hour with my voice running on empty. That's how much I love you. So show me how much you love me by following me on Twitter at @ThisIsNasty. I'll be reading your tweets on air next week and answering them because I've been getting so many of them. I do a weekly mailbag on Bleacher Report, but I can only do 5 to 6 before it gets too long. So with the remainder of them, I'll just read them on the podcast. And you know what? We will specify some of your tweets for this podcast. None of this leftover stuff. So send me your tweets. I have a lot of introspective, intellectual people who follow me on Twitter, and I want your voices to be heard. Listen to the show on Stitcher, iTunes, or SoundCloud, because growth is something I just do with no regard for human life, and this podcast is definitely growing. I'll see you next week. Same nasty time, different holiday.